Glacier
British Columbia has water protection groups concerned as some projects sit at the headwaters of the North Fork of the Flathead River. Katrin Fry reports from the North Fork of the Flathead River, miles downstream from the Canadian border, which is being labeled as one of the country's richest resources and one of its most endangered.
Water flows over the rocky gravel drop where the North Fork of the Flathead River flows into the Middle Fork. The Blankenship Bridge spans this confluence. On one side of the river, a group ranging in age from adults down to young children unloads their fishing poles and starts casting. American Rivers named the North Fork of the Flathead River the 5th most endangered river in America due to the threat of coal mining north of the border. The National Parks Conservation Association teamed up with the Flathead Coalition to nominate the North Fork to American Rivers. Glacier Program Manager for NPCA, Will Hammerquist, points out once the river flows into Montana, it's in Glacier National Park and on protected land. No such protection exists for the headwaters up near Foisey Creek in Canada.
Anyone who's been to Pole Ridge or been up the North Fork knows that that's a very special place. It's the wildest, most pristine river valley left in the continental United States, and the putting industrial energy extraction in the headwaters would have negative effects that would cascade down the river, and it would impact Montana fisheries, Montana water quality, and the way of life that we enjoy here in northwest Montana.
British Petroleum is exploring the feasibility of a coal mine at Mist Mountain in the Crow's Nest coalfield of British Columbia. In an email, they say they have no plans to drill in the area in 2009 and are continuing with their environmental studies and consultation. A partnership of the University of Montana's Flathead Lake Biological Station, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Geological Survey, and Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks are studying the Flathead River system. Field researcher Aaron Sexton works with the Biological Station and the Flathead Basin Commission on water quality surveying. Sexton describes the North Fork as a shifting mosaic, the river freely roaming as needed across the floodplain with surface water and groundwater mixing.
It's a wild and free river in that sense, and it supports a very strong native fisheries, and that's because it's cold, clean, clear, and connected. Those are the 4 buzzwords as far as what native bull trout need, as well as West Slope cutthroat.
Both Sexton and Professor Richard Hauer, also with the Biological Station, explain how a comparative study started a year ago is painting a clear picture of the importance of the North Fork. The Elk River is being compared to the North Fork. The Elk also crosses into Montana and flows into Lake Koocanusa near Eureka. The Elk has 5 open-pit coal mines. Hauer says the process of open-pit mining creates materials absorbed by the water and allows algae and pollution-tolerant insects to flourish.
We see more stuff growing in the bottom of the streams in the Elk. We see more very tolerant aquatic insects growing on the stuff in the Elk. But there's a decrease in the biodiversity. Many of the aquatic insects simply disappear.
Hauer and Sexton say the North Fork has not seen development like on the Elk River. The river samples collected from the North Fork have no detectable heavy metals, whereas they've measured high selenium, barium, copper, nitrates, and sulfur levels in samples from the Elk.
The fish actually are fairly tolerant as long as they get a lot of oxygen, and these streams have lots of riffles in them that are bringing oxygen in. So that's not an issue. What is an issue is the accumulation of heavy metals, in particular by the fish, and how that gets translated up through the food chain.
In Canada, the British Columbia Outdoor Recreation Council lists the Flathead as the most endangered river in BC. WildSight is a Canadian advocacy organization aiming to protect biodiversity and healthy human communities in the Columbia and Southern Rocky Mountains of British Columbia. WildSight's Casey Brennan of Fernie, BC, says the Flathead's been in the top 2 most endangered rivers for the past 3 years. Brennan says the designation allows for a proactive approach. It draws attention to the river, and they hope halts projects considered harmful to the ecosystem.
Rather than it being, oh, this river's on its way out, you might as well forget about it kind of thing. It's more like, this river is at a critical juncture. There's an opportunity here to head down a path that moves us in a direction of sustainability and protection and making space for nature versus a path that is going to mean a loss for future generations, both human and non-human.
American Rivers is a conservation organization focusing on water. They look at the effect of global warming on rivers, restoration, protection, clean water, and water supply. Although BP has no immediate plans to develop coal in the headwaters of the Flathead, they do hold the rights to drill from the provincial government. For Montana Evening Edition, I'm Katrin Fry, reporting from the North Fork.